Welcome everybody to the 6 Gardeners and Growers workshop for February 26. And this week I want to, before we get going, we just go through the various avenues for teaching, being the private agricultural teachings and the private teachings that goes on every week through the Kish Foundation, as well as having access to all the old teachings from 2 years ago. And then, of course, the books that Mr. Kish has written. Before we get going, if you guys can just let me know if there's a bit of a sound in the lag, because lag in the sound. We'd noticed on last workshops there was a bit of a lag on that sound. So just let us know, and then we can at least stop and repeat if there's a problem. Okay, so we're going to carry on with their seasons and their effects on the plants. Before I do that, I just want to run quickly, and we'll do a bit of a revision so that we can we'll get our brains on the same page. So I'll go through our opening statements again that we had made, and then now they'll probably start making a lot more sense to us. So our seasons are created because of the different positionings of the earth in relation to the sun. So that's in terms of the tilt of the earth and the different positioning between that and the sun. And this interaction of the fields from the sun and fields from the earth will be different all the time. So it's not a constant field strength. This means that the nitrogen, oxygen, carbon, and hydrogen that are created in the upper atmospheres will have different field strengths at different times of the year. And we can see how those affect the plants. And for example, the oxygen field strength in summer will be different to that oxygen field strength in winter. All right, so to recap, we have the interaction of the two plasmas, which is essentially the sun and the earth, and the magnetical rays that are given off from the sun and our universe, and these interact with the earth's fields, leading to the creation of our nitrogen for this planet. And the principal fields from the sun in the center of the universe is the plasma of hydrogen, and from that we can see the hydrogen from there creates everything that we need. With relation to the earth, because of Earth's position to the sun, this leads to the creation of the nitrogen gas in the outer atmosphere of Earth. And from that, with the upper boundary and the Earth's surface, so from the interaction at the boundary initially, we create the plasma of nitrogen, and from that nitrogen leads to the creation of the plasmas of carbon, oxygen, and hydrogen. And when that starts interacting with the metals on the surface of the earth, we lead to the creation of the plant life as we know it. And then also the animal leads to the creation of the animals. So in summary there, the fields of the Cohan are constantly created in the upper atmosphere. There are billions and billions of interactions of the principal fields of the hydrogen at this boundary. And as the Earth's position in relation to the sun changes, even a slight change in this gap will lead to different field strengths of the Cohans being created. So there's a constant changing there all the time. And as the carbon and oxygen and hydrogens are created from the plasmas of the nitrogen, they all have a connection because they all come from that same source. And they also have the connection to the principal fields from our sun and the universe, because that's where the nitrogen was created from those principal hydrogen fields. And so this explains why we can say that everything is connected to everything else, because there is that original source. The plants and the fields, now when we start looking at how the plants will start absorbing and interacting different fields at different times of the year, same as us humans. We do feel, a lot of times we'll feel depressed during winter time and very happy during spring and summertime. So just as the plants are absorbing the different field strengths, so we are as well. And for the plants, there needs to be a matching field strength of what they need to the field strength of the cohens that are created in the atmosphere. And when there's a match, the plants are able to take in these fields and grow. And the plants know this as it is a basis of their DNA and RNA as to what fields that they want to interact with. The plants are very sensitive to the changes in these fields and will only interact with those of a certain strength. And as we've said last time, the deciduous trees lose their leaves in winter because the field strength of the oxygen, carbons, and nitrogens that the tree were using to create the CO2 has changed. So they then deliberately shut their leaves down. And that these fields also affect the ripening of fruit at certain times of the year. And then we showed the CO2 box setup that we use to create our CO2 GANs is a representation of the leaf and how the leaf creates the CO2. And so there you've got our CO2 setup with the two plates, and essentially we're creating the field to attract the carbon initially. And once the carbon is formed and it forms CO2, we then also create the fields to attract the CO2, as well as your cohens as well, which then form the amino acids on the surface of the layer of your water. And that's where we can then equate it to the shiny, oily substance that one gets on the surface of the leaf. So we also learned that each plant, due to its leaf shape and color and size and arrangement of these leaves, will create different field strengths of CO2 internally. And this field strength of CO2 will attract the fields of the cohen from the environment to create the amino acids on the surface of the leaf. And there needs to be a matching field strength of what the plant needs and the field strength of the cohen in order for the plants to grow. Okay, so that was just a brief summary there of last workshops on seasons there. If there's any questions on that one at this stage, and then we'll carry on to some new information.
Just one question, Jimmy. If we add plasma fields to the plant, does that make any difference to the seasons or the production of the plant?
Yes, that's what we found out with if you remember our tomato plants that we did go through. And by adding the CO2, by having it in the water and spraying our tomato plants, the tomato plants grew through winter period as if it was sort of spring and summer. So we had changed that environment around the plants so they could absorb the correct fields.
Good, thank you. I intend to do some of that experimentation myself.
Yes, it would be nice, particularly with winter coming on, for a lot of people to try it and give feedback during winter time, just to see whether, if more and more people do it and we get the same and similar results, then we know we'll be onto something, and it can be changed.
I've got a feeling I've already changed some of the fruiting of my trees with these GANs hanging, the CO2 GANs hanging in containers around the tree. I'm just wondering, will that'll be the norm when over the year? I believe it may be the normal thing when I do leave the GANs containers around the tree. whether it will change the season for the tree, and possibly that will be so. I've found that, say for instance, figs that didn't have the first crop, but we've got a pretty big second crop.
Okay. Because how many crops do you get a year then for the figs? Is it?
The two, one in about December, and then another one about now. We're only getting, we didn't get anything much, well, we got virtually nothing for the December crop. And,
Yes.
But now we've got quite a bumper crop, actually.
Okay. When did you start with the bottles then, Ross?
Well, before the, well, let's see, it must have been before December. Yes, it was before December because the citrus was still on the trees, yeah.
Okay, it'll be interesting to see all these effects on the different trees, you know, so we try and encourage as many people as possible to play, because, you know, if we can start correlating different effects, and then it'll be nice, then we know for certain that we can extend seasons and get fruiting outside of season time, because it'll be nice to compare December time again to see whether you get a good crop this December compared to this past December now.
Yes.
Because of the GANs. So no, that's great.
You know, what we are discovering is that the plasmas are of a stronger field strength or a higher field strength. And so by adding them to around your plant, the plant wants to come to balance with it. So they grow, they absorb, and they grow. So this is what they're doing in the winter. Because the fields in the winter are less, that's why they stop growing. So if we add stronger fields by adding the CO2, they absorb and want to come to balance.
Yes. They certainly make the plants grow. I can attest to that.
Yes. I've noticed it. So I haven't done it for a while, but I think it was a couple of months back. I used to go around all where our aquaponics are and just spray in the CO2 just all over the grass, everywhere, you know, not just necessarily on our tomatoes. So I think the neighbors must have thought I was quite mad running around spraying everywhere else. But I have noticed that the grass definitely a lot better growing than anywhere else, you know, so even compared to my neighbor's grass. So it seems to be making quite an impact on the whole surrounding area by just spraying with the CO2 water. So that's quite an interesting effect that we've seen. All right.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
You know, the CO2, like I was just changing one of them today, and there was quite a bit of the amino acid on. And I think Lisa said one time that maybe she was mixing the, instead of collecting it separately, she was letting it settle or something. Is there any information on, you know, keeping the aminos with the CO2 GANs?
Well, I remember Mr. Kesh saying that to get the amino fields, you should try and add a little bit to the CO2. So, you know, what I've always done is I collect as much as I can off the top, and then there's often a bit of a layer left. You can't get it all.
Yep.
And so then I shake it in so that it goes into the GANs, a little bit of it at least, and then let it settle again, and then collect the GANs like that. So all my GANs does have a little bit of aminos in, but I do remember him saying specifically, because he said even if you poke your syringe through the surface of the water and then go down to suck up your GANs, you are already introducing amino acids.
Ah, yeah. Yeah. I noticed that when you, if you push syringe in, that it sort of clears the area of aminos around it, as though you've pushed them down or push them out, something like that. So yeah, okay, that's very good information. Thanks.
You know, I'm a bit lazy, so I let everything settle down once I've collected my aminos, and then I tip the top water off my box until I get down to sort of halfway, and then I fill it with water again. So I can't sit with a syringe because I've got so many boxes going that I'll be there all day. So
Fair enough. Thank you.
We have sometimes other things we have to do. So it's all good fun.
Do you collect the aminos using a syringe or with the fabric lever?
I've got a nano-coated plastic spoon, and so I go around with my plastic spoon. It's a lot easier with the CH3 and the CuO. Those seem to be easier to collect, so I've got a lot more of those, but I still do that as well on my CO2 and my zinc. And yes, so they've each got their own little bottle, and then I just collect in there. But it's slow and it's not a lot. And don't forget, you must take some salt with, because they won't preserve if they don't have a bit of salt.
When we take salt, you mean the salt that's on the nano plate?
No, just a little bit of salt water. When you storing your aminos, they need salt not to degrade. So you need to have a bit of salt in your water when you're storing your aminos. The GANs obviously needs clear water, but the aminos wants a bit of salt in the water.
Thank you.
You know, when you're scooping your amino acid off with the spoon, you are picking up some salt water in there, and when you put that into a jar, you just leave it as that. You not having to wash that amino acid, so it'll automatically have salt water in there.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll look at the next part of seasons. So when we look at the tilt of Earth's axis, it means that the amount of fields directed and absorbed by the planet from the sun and the central of the universe changes all the time. And that's what gives us our seasons. And the tilt gives the plants different maggraph fields at different times of the year and at different parts of the planet as well. So this also explains why certain plant species will only grow New Zealand and for example, in Australia, and not grow in the tropics. And so you end up having from north to south, you also then have the different zones where some plants grow and some plants don't, is because they're all then exposed to different fields at different points on the planet. And this tilt basically gives us the variation in plant life across the whole planet. So if we look at north to south and east to west, we have that variety of plant life, and it's just due to the differences in the field strengths coming in.
As well as the weather, obviously.
Yes.
Weather zones.
Okay, I want to look at specifically autumn. And to do that, I'm just going to do a very brief structure of the leaf. The internal workings of the leaf, and when we're looking at like the photosynthesis, that we're still trying to work on and decipher. But for today, we just look at the basic structure, and we know that it has the two surfaces, the front and back of the leaf. Now, your top side of the leaf is always the shiny part. That's the one that's always exposing itself to the sunlight. And this is the amino acid on the surface of the leaf. So just like our CO2 box where the amino acid sits on the surface of our water, so the amino acid will collect on top of the leaf. Now, both the top and bottom of the leaf is nano-coated, and as well, essentially the whole plant has a nano-coated layer, so even your stems, and so that every part of it is interacting with the fields. So even when you look at some of the stem part, with some plants, you will see the tiny little hairs on the stems, and all those hairs are contact points with the interaction of the fields. So just like our whole skin is nano-coated and interacting with the fields around us, so the plant as well, from the leaf to the stems to the trunk, or every part of the plant is interacting with the fields. And the structure inside of a leaf is in a GAN state. So that's very important to understand. Internally within the plants, it's all in a GAN state, same as internally within the human body, everything is in a GAN state. So I'm going to look at how plants react to the environment and what makes the leaves on a plant turn brown and fall off. So the plants are reacting to these change in maggraph fields in the environment, and they will decide, according to their RNA and DNA, to absorb or reject these fields. And these are the fields of your carbons, oxygens, hydrogens, and nitrogen, producing the amino acids on the surface of their leaves. And this is the food source of the plants, is this amino acid. You know, we're all eating amino acids in different forms. When we are eating meat from another animal, or the meat is an amino acid in an amino acid form. If we are eating plants, it's in an amino acid form. So just like we eat food, which is all amino acid based, so the plants are also eating food which is amino acid based.
Absorbing the fields,
yeah.
Not eating anything.
No. Okay, so when the leaves on a plant cannot connect with the fields from the environment, so we'll get a change in the season, which is a change in the strength of the fields. They can no longer create the amino acids or the food source on the surface of their leaf. Because of the different field strengths, they have to find a match. So when this happens, the plant will close this gap between the two surfaces of the leaf. And the closing of this gap means it can no longer absorb any fields. So the plant decides, I cannot absorb these fields, it's a different strength, and so it will close that gap between the two surfaces of the leaf. This process takes time in terms of the closing of the gap. So we see the changing of the color of the leaf from the green to the yellow to the orange colors of autumn. The leaves are essentially dying and losing their fields to the environment. The decay of the leaves is a release of fields to the environment. So when we see something decaying and dying, it's always releasing fields to the environment, because nothing is ever lost. It's always just changed from one form to another. And the color that we see of the leaf is sort of the internal structure, which gives us that color. And so as that gap between the outer and the two surfaces of the leaf closes slowly, so that color changes as the leaf slowly starts dying, because it just essentially cannot absorb the fields anymore. So the leaves drop from the plants, and the plants essentially go to sleep to conserve energy until the conditions are right again for the new growth in spring. Because as there's no leaves for the plants to gain new energies, so they just have to conserve their energy throughout the winter period, and so they go to sleep and enjoy their winter growth, just like the hibernation of some bears. So some of the plants do that as well. And when we have the leaves on the ground, we now essentially have dried GANs on the ground, because now that gap between the two surfaces of the plant has closed to such a degree that sometimes when you pick up those leaves, you can see that they just crumble in your hands, and that's essentially now dried GANs. So it's the same when, I don't know if any of you have dried some of your CO2 GANs. It's just just forms a nice powdery substance, and that's what your leaves are as well. when you crumple them up, it's just a nice powdery substance, and that's essentially dried GANs. And as we said, when things decompose, so your leaves decomposing, it's just a release of fuels to the environment. So during this whole stage, during the autumn period, the plants are releasing fuels which are available for others to use. So nothing is ever destroyed. It is simply converted from one form to another. So this release of energy is available for others to use. We as human beings will absorb that energy as well. That's why autumn gives different feelings to people. It's always tremendous beauty in autumn time with the different colors. And so we understand that we absorb these feels. So even as the plants are sort of their leaves are slowly dying, they are feeding us with this tremendous energy, and other creatures out there as well. So it's just a transfer of from one form to another of this energy. So now we can see that plants will change their leaves according to the fields of the environment. So when we look at springtime, it's always full of new birth, new growth. When you look at the green color, it's a very vibrant green because everything's coming to life. Summertime, things are much more established, growth, and that green color will also be different compared to the green color on plants. You know, if you notice the new birth of growing tips on plants, that green color is very different to the older green colors and leaves on the plant. Autumn, we get the changes to beautiful colors of the yellow and orange, and then winter you get your brown and dropping off. So the leaves indicate to us the changes in these environments. So when one looks at the leaf structure itself, these external fields, whether it be in autumn or summer, they dictate the gap of the leaf, and the plant decides that they want to shut down during the autumn and winter period and just go to sleep. And so you'll see all these leaves dropping off. So when the plant can no longer find a match to the external fields, it will just close this gap and the leaves will dry and fall off. And it's as simple as that, as the trees reacting to the environment around them. As we know, not all plants lose their leaves in winter. So if we were to observe these plants, we would still see a change in the color of their leaves during the different seasons as well. So even your green color of a plant in autumn or winter or spring or summer will be slightly different. So they are changing to the environment, but it's a very subtle change. And they're also producing new leaves, and other leaves are dropping off, but it's done on a very slow basis throughout the year. And just to bring in some other aspects of our understanding now, and I'm sure a lot of you have heard of the flower essences, those Bach flower remedies. There's also what they call a falling leaf essence, which is developed by an Australian chap. We have read his book. And so what he does is he just makes essences of the different trees, different leaves as it falls from the tree. And he just soaks this leaf in water, and the mangrove fields are imprinted into the water. So as we know that the leaf is dried GANs, and so all these leaves are imprinting those fields into the water, just like a flower essences would do the same thing. And so now we can understand how, by understanding this technology, how it all fits in with different aspects of what we've all been exposed to over these years. All right. Springtime. Any questions before springtime?
So, excuse me, Jimmy, just one question. The leaves that are mixed in the water, it's not tannin, or could it be called tannin? it's actually a GANS solution. Once the water is mixed with the leaves, the dry leaves.
What he does, Ross, is when you make a flower or a falling leaf essence,
Yep.
you literally just put a very small amount of that flower or a leaf on top of a distilled, onto the distilled water at a certain, when it's sunny out, and you leave it for a few hours, and all it's doing is imprinting its energy. So there's no actual chemical, transfer there. It's purely an energetic thing. So it would just be a very gentle transfer of energy from the flower or the leaf and imprint itself on the water. And then that distilled water is basically just taken and used as a mother tincture, and a little bit of alcohol is added to it to keep it fresh so it doesn't go off.
Thank you, Lisa.
And also, I remember way back in the beginning when we first started watching Kesh, and especially with the building of the MagRav units, and there was a lot of talk at that time of building MagRavs out of coconuts and using leaves and all sorts of things, and I found it quite bizarre then as to how one can do that. But now when we understand that the leaf is essentially GANS, and we dry the leaf and we have dried GANS, it's just not the GANS of copper, but it's still essentially a GANS, so now it all starts to make sense. But then it didn't.
I had the same feeling, actually, Jimmy, when Kusol got into branches and things. I just wondered what was happening.
Yes, it just seemed too way out there, but it's just the lack of our understanding.
I remember somebody running around pointing a finger with the leaf wrapped around a finger and saying, "This is my pain pen." And actually, yes, it is, but you don't need the leaf either, because your skin is a nano. So you just point your finger, and that is your pain pen.
That's it. Good one. Very good.
Okay. In springtime, the changes in the fields for spring is equal to the emotion of the plants in respect to birth of new plants, new growth. It's sort of new beginnings to the plant life, and it's the same as us. How do we feel in springtime? Coming out of winter, we're all quite depressed, but as soon as springtime hits, it's just a change of energies. We feel energized and happy and want to run out and do things. And it's the same for the plants. Their emotion is changed with the fields. And you see all this new wonderful growth coming from the plants in springtime, because they are just as happy as us coming out of the winter period. So we see the new growth on plants, the seeds germinating, and then the colors, that's sort of the emotion that the plants exhibit to us is through the colors in the springtime. And then summer, the question is why do we get faster plant growth in summer compared to the winter? Besides the changes in the fields and what they can absorb, we do get plants that grow in winter time. A lot of these sort of Asians and broccoli and cauliflowers that do grow in winter time, but they are much slower compared to during summertime. So what is this difference? And it comes down to the same interaction between the sun and the earth during the summertime. In whatever hemisphere you're in, the earth is closer. And so because of this closeness, we get more field interactions. And these interactions of the fields from the sun and the fields from the earth give off residual energies. And it's these residual energies is what we experience as light and heat. And it's the same as these residual energies is also what makes the plants grow faster in summer than in winter, is because they're just surrounded by so much energy that they can absorb. And so we get faster growth. There is a lot more to this which I'm still trying to understand, and as soon as I do understand it, I will be able to explain it a lot better. But at this stage, this is the basis that we just have to work from until I can get a better understanding. Seeds and seasons. Not all seeds germinate when it rains. So now we can start looking at different aspects now that we understand the effects of what the seasons have. When we look at bulbs, they only come up in springtime, yet they receive rainwater in wintertime and every other time of the year, but they don't come up, they don't start germinating, but they will only do it in the springtime. And so one has to look at is the condition of the warmth from the soil that could activate these bulbs. But at the same token, we now understand that these changes in the fields are also in the rainwater. And so when it rains in that early springtime and this water filters through to the soil and the bulbs come in contact with this water and the correct fields, and bingo, there's that connection and the bulbs start germinating. So start growing, yes. So we can start looking at things differently as to how they work. It's the same as some wild seeds in your garden or the lands only germinate in different seasons, yet they all get rain all throughout the year, but they will only germinate at certain times of the year. And this is because the seed itself is waiting for that right connection. So as soon as the water comes with the right field connection, then they will germinate. We also get our seasons because of that distance between the earth and the sun changes throughout the year, and these create different maggraph field strengths. And so we know that our different seasons will have different strengths, which explains some of these peculiarities in terms of why things only grow and germinate at different times of the year. And as we've said, these seasonal changes are captured in the elements produced by our atmosphere. So the cohans produced in the upper atmosphere will come down in the rain. These fields are coming into the water and are there so that the seeds and the bulbs and the different plants can get access to these different fields, and it triggers their growth. Now we can have a look at some future implications in that when we learn, when we learn to use these different fields, we can start looking at creating an environment for our plants without the need for any expensive greenhouses, heating and cooling. So we can start looking at replicating and creating an environment that will be spring and summer for our plants. And we can also look at creating an environment where plants can grow that don't normally grow in your parts of the world. So it's just by understanding these different field strengths and the interaction of the field strengths with the plants, I think when we start having a bit more understanding and the tools to start measuring these different field strengths, we can use this and start creating different environments for our plants. And so we'll be able to then grow plants almost throughout the year and grow plants in areas that we've never been able to grow. And one can see that nature is doing this all the time. You know, when you go through and you walk through a forest, you know, we'll call it microclimate in our garden. There's certain spots in our garden. There's a clump of trees and bushes, and it's a lot cooler than another spot in the garden. So nature in itself is starting to create and creates its own different environments. By putting certain trees and shrubs together, it'll be a lot cooler and create a different environment. So we can learn and do the same. So we just have to copy nature, understand it, and then we can also now start creating our own different microclimates wherever we are. All right, if there's any questions at that stage, and then what we do have is we do have 2 questions that were sent through to us. And what I want to do is to read this one, and then if I can ask anybody that if they can have an answer for us, and we can try and think of an answer for this this farmer. He's in Romania. So he says his other job is farming, and he has 8 beehives and about 1,500 goji berry trees. I'm watching the bees from this year and the goji from last year, and the land that I'm working on hasn't been exploited for 20 years, and I have many weeds. They are not such a problem except for the wild blackberries, which is a real pain in the arse. Sorry for the bad language, but can you help me get rid of them, please? So I want to open it to if anybody can have some ideas or suggestions.
In a plasma sense first.
In a plasma sense.
Otherwise we will get on to the actual, what people normally do for blackberries, but just in terms of plasma way.
If anybody's got any ideas.
What about the, you know, the biodynamic sort of way of somehow creating a solution that off, say, thistles or something, if you want to get rid of them?
Burning it, yeah.
Peppering,
yeah.
Just explain that again.
It's a peppering method, you know, for controlling weeds and things.
Okay.
And it sounds just like what you're saying, that you get the imprint of the you would, I guess, with blackberries, not that I'm, you know, over familiar with it, but I guess with the blackberries, you'd burn it and get an ash.
Okay.
With water, and spray it around.
Right, you potentize
yeah,
it and vortex it, yeah.
But that's just what sprung to mind. I don't know whether it would be effective or not.
So they're just spraying the blackberries with sort of the
blackberries.
The blackberries.
Yeah.
As
Okay.
my understanding would be that you'd take the whole plant and you'd turn it into ash, which
Yes.
I guess stands there.
It's like homeopathy, like fixes, like, yeah.
Okay. Well, that's certainly one way.
I'm just pondering that though, in terms of if we're looking at weeds, and we've discussed weeds before, the weeds are essentially remediating the soil by putting goodness back in the soil, by creating minerals and such. And so maybe if one burns the weeds, you're helping to remediate the soil. The only problem with blackberries, I had a little look on the internet, and they grow in any soil, good, bad, or indifferent. They don't care. They just grow. They become invasive. So yes, he could try it. I'm not sure if it would work or not. Even trying to change the condition in a plasma way, which I suppose the peppering is in a sense a plasma way. I'm not sure that changing a condition would work, because they don't seem to care about the condition. They just grow.
Great.
Because I'd thought, you know, if something likes acidic soil, for example, you can maybe change it to a more an alkaline soil, then maybe they wouldn't like to be there. But I suppose that would work on normal type weeds.
Any other ideas?
No ideas, but they're very hard to get rid of, these things.
Yeah, we'd come across them in Tasmania when we visited there, and they're all along the fence lines between properties. They seem to just take over when they get hold.
Hello, Lisa, Jim.
Hello, Alex. Welcome.
Yes, thank you. What is the problem with the blackberries?
Well, I think they're just there, and he considers them weeds, and obviously he wants to use the ground for other agricultural crops, and so he wants to know how we can remove them from a plasma way.
Forgive me. I just think he has a gift, and
yes.
Why doesn't he harvest them?
You know what my first reaction was when we got this email, and he said the first thing that came to my mind was make jam.
Wow.
And my feeling with using the plasma way is these plants are there, they're established, they're happy, they give a lovely crop. I mean, the blackberry, start calling it a new superfood. Essentially, use it and farm it, just sort of manage the crops and farm and make jam and make juices and sell the berries, but use it as a crop, because it's there, it's happy, it doesn't need to be fertilized or sprayed with any insecticide, so that was my initial reaction, was to make jam. So it was...
Well, I am from northern Canada, and we are in the blueberry capital of the world here, and so I would suggest that his soil is very acidic.
Okay.
So alkalizing the soil is really what it's all about. But I think he has a gift there, and
yes.
I'm sure the blackberries are rivaling the goji berries with respect to nutrients. And obviously they're native to his land there. So I think he has a gift there. The soil must be in an extremely acidic condition. I don't know what the environment is where he is over there, but I just think that this is not a problem. This is a gift.
Yeah, that's my reaction as well. We have to start learning and stop the old ways of trying to control nature. We always want to enforce our will, and we have to sort of take a step back and look at what nature is offering us and work with nature. As you say, he has a gift there. Look at it from that point of view, and not something to get rid of, because he'll expend so much time and energy and money trying to get rid of them. Whereas, why don't he use them and farm them?
Do they grow like raspberries and strawberries?
Yeah, I don't know this particular variety. I know the ones here in Australia, they grow nicely along. If you put up some fencing, they love being fenced, and they will grow along a fence line. So I don't know that particular variety.
I'm not sure if they're wild, just the wild weed variety, or whether they're more of a cultivated variety. And I'm not sure the different types.
No, but what I'm asking is, do they grow with runners? Do they have? Are they annuals? Are they perennials?
It looks like they grow as runners, because he was saying he battles to get rid of them. He'll pull them all out, and obviously there's little bits of root and left behind, and then they just come up. So I'd imagine they're runners. Okay,
well, I don't know. At $60 a basket, I'd be happy to have about blackberry contamination.
Is that what the price is?
There's a whole cottage industry up here. I'll tell you, it's in big demand. I just think he has a gift. I understand the attraction with the goji berries. I'm surmising that he's looking to substitute the blackberries for goji berries, and that's the nature of the question. But a strawberry farm, what I know of is it takes 2 years to get the fruit. So if he has established blackberry patches, that means he's already bearing fruit. So
Yeah.
I would say, you know, look for harvesting. If he's looking to diminish the crop, then he's going to have to alkalize the soil, and diatomaceous earth is probably the best answer for him.
Okay. Oh, that's great. Thanks for that info, Alex.
And I'm one of my projects to come is going to be diatomaceous earth GANs. So I have other questions to ask you about a greenhouse. Can I do that now?
Yes, you're welcome to. Yeah.
Okay. These solutions that you're talking about with respect to managing the environment without a greenhouse. Now, is this your plan for the future, or have you already gotten solutions and you're going to continue in the seminar to? Where do you stand on this issue?
Okay. What we've experienced is with our tomatoes, in terms of just being able to spray the CO2 in the environment and have it in our water for the plants. And we've seen it with our lettuce as well. For us, the next stage, and that's what we're going to be looking at this year, is obviously that becomes quite tedious and not very effective as a permanent solution. So our next stage, and what we're going to be investigating, is to actually set up several reactors in the field. So it's spinning balls at around 11,000 RPM with the CO2 and zinc and different gases in those balls, and try and set it up in sort of the star formation, and through that we will create that environment. We're also looking to, with that system, is to then feed the plants as well, because as we know, the plants take most of their food sources through their leaves, through the environment, and that, so by creating a very strong environment for them, we should be able to feed them nicely, and they should grow much stronger and better under normal circumstances. But then the spinning of these balls, we're hoping that will almost create the sort of a nice environment biodome for these plants. So that's been our target for this year. And I think that's where the development will go.
Okay, so we're working on that development at this point in time. You're looking at eliminating the need for the greenhouse altogether.
Yes. Yes.
Can I mean, I really like that idea, because my greenhouse just collapsed under the snow. Yeah, that's a $5,000
You
laugh.
can't cry, you've just got to laugh.
Yeah, it's a $5,000 laugh. Yeah. Anyway,
Yes.
But how does that resolve the pest issue? Like for instance, you know, we have bears and minks and raccoons and things like that. So it's great to eliminate the greenhouse with respect to controlling the climate, sort of there. Does that take into account these other pests, though? Just wondering.
Yeah, the living pests.
That is going to require the next level up on the understanding, because I reckon this is going to be where we need to maybe introduce our own amino acid into the reactor, for example, our blood or something like that. And then you're going to be putting the emotion of what you desire into the reactor, so that the animals actually feel the pushback of the fields when they come close, because you're telling that the fields are saying you don't want them there. And that's the sort of the next level up, where we haven't quite achieved the basic level of just feeding the plants and creating a condition yet. But yeah, that would be the next level of understanding, I think.
Excellent, thank you.
But yeah, we're still a long way off.
I guess I'm going to have to build the greenhouse back.
Yeah, I'm afraid so, yes, for the time being.
Unless you want to just net it and then spin reactors to keep the creatures out, because your bug pests, the things that attack it with viruses or bacteria or bugs, we've discovered that if you create a strong enough plant with a strong enough environment, the bugs just don't, because the fields say, I'm not for food, and so the bugs just don't come,
I found that true also. I just find that the pests actually attack the weak, and so they purge the system of dead or decaying plants or plants that don't have the vitality, and then they're attracted to that. So you were talking about the pests attacking the lettuce and things like that, and then how you found that when the lettuce was strong and vibrant, that you didn't have that problem. And that's exactly that's common all over the place. So strengthening the GANS field or the plasma field for the plants is definitely going to improve the crop yield on that basis alone.
Yes. And the sort of a deeper understanding with the plants as well is when the plants are unhappy and they know that they essentially going to be dying, they want to essentially give. So they will send out that signal, send out a different field to attract the bugs, because they would rather give their energy, give their fields to these other creatures.
Exactly.
And so there's this whole interplay between the plants and the other creatures, and we view it as a pest, but essentially it's the plant's giving of itself to feed something else because it's dying. So, they don't do it, they're doing it to sort of elevate themselves and other creatures around them. They're not selfish. So it's a different way.
Exactly. If I just may add something to that, please. In our group, we call it calling. When you're choosing a crop for a specific area, unless you do have some kind of climate control, it is very difficult to introduce a crop that is foreign to the environment that you're in. So like I say, up here we have an extremely acidic soil condition. So certain kinds of plants really thrive, and so for instance, we have white pine and we have blueberries. So they're and in abundance, and it's specific to the soil. But so what happens is actually the soil is calling for a plant that will actually be rich in alkaline substances. So when that plant decomposes, which is what you were talking about as the leaves are decomposing, the mineral content of that plant is highly alkaline and will alkalize the soil. And if it continues on its own, you will find that plant will either come back because it hasn't done the job, or it'll be replaced by another plant because it has done the job. And one of the classic examples is that of dandelions. We find that the lawn industry has really screwed that up because first of all we cut grass and so we cut dandelions, and second of all then we fertilize and then we also try and remove the dandelions and kill them. If we let the dandelions grow for 3 years, they will be gone, because they are extremely efficient at bringing calcium to the top surface of the soil. In fact, they're probably one of the most efficient plants in that way. And again, we're also the dandelion capital of the world, because we're right next to the largest mine in the world, which happens to be Inco. So we have an extremely, we're talking a pH of 4.5 in our soil.
Sure. Okay. Yes, that is acidic.
Very acidic. Yes. So and the berries, like I say, love it. So. This is so anyway, what we're saying is that the earth itself is calling for its own healing and its own balance, if you will. So it is actually choosing which plant is going to grow there, and that plant responds. So the plants respond to the environment, and then the pests respond to the environment as well as calling out by the plants. So,
Yeah.
instead of choosing which plant is growing in there, the earth is choosing it on our behalf.
Yeah, everything is, everything is linked and interfaced, and we have to sort of sit back and start observing nature and seeing and learning from nature, because nature is a master of this, and we come along and we're trying to enforce our will all the time, and it just doesn't work. So it's a case of working with nature, catching the wave and enjoying it, or just trying to paddle upstream against nature, and we'll always lose.
That's right. Yes. Thank you very much.
Thanks for that, Alex. All right, we do have we received another question, and I'll just read it. Hello, Lisa. We'd stated in the video from last workshop that the shiny surface of leaf is nano-coated. I would think the other way around. Zinc plate is the shiny, nano-copper is matted compared to the leaf. Am I wrong? Thanks, going to present in the Vietnamese teaching. So I'll let Lisa answer that one.
Well, yes, this was all about how the CO2 box is a representation of the leaf, and I just explained that although we're using two plates, the two plates aren't actually a replica, if you will, of the structure of the leaf. They are just replicating what is going on inside the leaf, which is the leaf is creating a field strength of the carbon, which is wanting to pull in the CO2, and the leaf is also salty. If you take a composition of the leaf, there are different salts in there, which creates the salt in your CO2 box. And by doing this, it creates the CO2. So the zinc and the nano-copper, you could even use two different kind of plates, as long as you were getting a difference of the 6 neutrons in your salt water. So it's just a representation of what's going on in the leaf, and it isn't an actual exact replica of what's going on in the leaf. And then the shiny side is obviously where the amino acids collect, just like the top of your CO2 box. Did that make sense to everybody?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Anybody else that might have any more questions or some feedback that they'd like to share?
Were you going to show us something today, Ross?
Not me. I said Mark. Probably on the spot.
I thought you said you might have a bit of photos or something.
I'm working on it.
Okay. We won't jump on you. It's okay.
You got me. I agree what Alex said and what you agree. When you put a field around the plants, I've found they automatically don't attract the pests and that sort of thing. And I put it down to the fact that maybe some of your amino acids have been collecting on what you've been doing and what you handle the plants with. And maybe that has a bit of input too. This is probably, what do you think?
Well, I think so. This technology is so new, and so yes, if we're collecting the CO2 and the amino acids, and maybe if we're stating our intention during that process and saying, well, I want this for the plants so that no other animals or creatures come nearby. Yes, who's to say that we are not creating that environment and that intention for the environment?
Actually, so that is so. That intention is there very clearly. I'm thinking of my particular tomato crop. got a huge amount of tomatoes, and in the past, the ringneck or the 28 parrots, if you know the ones, I think, they'd eat the tomatoes, and I'd have to throw over them. But now I've had quite a few tomatoes, and they aren't attacking the tomatoes this time, but they're very hungry because they haven't had all my fruit this year. So,
but not your tomatoes.
Not the tomatoes, which is unusual.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I think there's so much that we just are just starting to understand, and our intention and is just so powerful. And I think we really don't we really underestimate how powerful our intention can be in all of this.
You know, I've been watching, because listening to Mr. Kesh, he's always saying, you know, he gets all his stuff from nature, and so I've started being a lot more observant, and I think we all need to start being a bit more observant of things, and even animals. You know, you can take a dog and a cat, and that cat will look at the dog, and the dog will slink away. It's created its field, and it said, "You will not come near me," and the dog knows exactly what it means. There's a lot for us to learn, and we're just touching the surface here, and when we start learning this stuff, we're going to be able to connect with the plants, the animals, and set our intentions and help them to set theirs too, I think.
I agree wholeheartedly, Lisa. That's a very good observation.
And I think it'll be us learning more from nature and the plants and animals than the other way around. I think we've lost our way, and they'll be the ones to show us.
They always are. That's correct too, Jimmy.
Yeah.
What we find here is that we do have an electric fence around our property, but we also both of us put out a strong intention that the animals, if they come through the fence, that they have to understand that we might have a trap out for them. And they have become very respecting. We've put this ring of blue light around, and we've had no problem with opossums, rats, pheasants, or any other birds. So because we've both put such a strong intention out, it has worked really well for us. Plus, we never leave any food lying around. We don't have open compost. Everything goes into the worm farms.
Yeah, so we don't create anything that's attractive for them. Yeah.
You know, we also learned from a friend of ours who's got a strong connection with the Aboriginal community, and we had a couple of instances where we had these big lizards coming and jumping into our big goannas coming into our chicken coop and trying to eat the eggs. And he said to us, you need to set your intention around the property and tell them that if they come in, they're fair game, and to stay away. And since that time, we've only had one intrusion of a small goanna, and even the snakes and everything, you know, we get our favorite carpet python come around, and he's or she's in the family, and the same with the green tree snake, because they kind of live in the garden. But other than that, the bad ones that we've set our intention now for them not to come. They seem to be very, you know, absent. So maybe that's what Alex needs to try instead of his, you know, for his greenhouse. He needs to start setting the intention as well, besides the any thought of actual ganses. Maybe that might help with the bears and the whatever other creatures want to come stumbling in.
It's called bears and moose.
The moose, the big moose.
You've got bears, we've got very scary snakes.
Yeah.
If
Right.
you've got chickens, Lisa,
Oh,
you
one
will
thing with us. Oh, sorry.
sorry.
One thing with us, I know you don't do it in Australia, but the opossum gets trapped if he comes aboard. So, because they can be quite destructive here.
Okay.
I
We haven't had-
believe we gave the possums to New Zealand anyway. In fact, I'm not sure whether, I think they're trying to eradicate possums in New Zealand, don't they?
Or brought them over from Australia.
That's right. They're the Australian possums. So we gave them to you with the best intention.
Yeah, you also gave South Africa and the world the blue gums, I think.
We certainly did. And I hope you appreciate them.
No, we don't.
Oh,
Yeah, well, if nature wants to share it around, it'll share it around without us. So.
What about the chickens, Ross?
what about, well, the chickens, you feed them grain, and what eats the grain? The mice and the rodents, and the snakes come after the rodents. We don't have chickens, and we've got chickens next door, fortunately, so we've got a supply of eggs. The people next door have chickens, but they've killed so many snakes over there, and the snakes have killed their dog as well. So, at times, that is. So they're not too fussy about us because we haven't got too many rodents. So that's generally the attraction for snakes. They like the rodents, and the rodents like the grain and the chain. Of
Yeah. What we do is we put our grain into a big steel dustbin, and I feed my chickens by hand, and they eat every last drop on the ground twice a day. I don't leave anything out for them. They don't have feeders at all.
That is the best policy, yeah, I agree with.
And then lunch is the plasma lettuce is their lunch.
Lucky chickens.
So they're the best compost makers are our chickens because they get all the plasma lettuce bits for lunch.
That'd be a healthy bird.
But I must say, I was listening to the Knowledge Seekers workshop on Thursday, and Mr. Kesh was talking about all the liquid plasmas that they've been using with the vets in Ghana, and just literally bathing with the CO2 waters and the zinc waters. And I've had this chicken, and I can't put my finger on what's wrong with her. She's just a droopy chicken. She just sits there and doesn't want to eat, and she doesn't seem ill. So I've been trying to feed her for over a week now, and she sort of just has a little bit enough to survive and looks very unhappy. So I decided to start bathing her with the Gans waters day before yesterday. And literally within a couple of hours, she started looking perkier. Her color started coming back, and she started pecking to even attempt grain again. So she's on the up and up, and I've been using Gans water on her head, and I lift up the feathers around on her chest and everywhere, and I add the Gans water there. And it's quite remarkable what a difference it's making, because before I just tried to give her a little bit in the water for her to drink, but that didn't seem to be doing very much. But so any animals you've got that are not well, I think the first port of call now needs to be just to bath them with the CO2 and the zinc water.
I agree, and we use a triggered squeezy pack, so you spray it on, and I find also that believe it or not, I've found that it's more effective than Gans patches, would you believe, by spraying the Gans directly on your skin. It's been successful over time, so it might be just unique to us, but my wife has been using it as well. Mary, she uses it, spraying on the skin over the area that's giving pain or whatever, and it's very effective.
Yes, I think that is going to be the next, sort of a lot of people are going to start using that. And then also what I'm testing is I've made myself, for years I've been making organic cream. So I've made a plasma cream with a organic base and then added some actual GANs of CO2 and zinc. And I'm testing, I've got 2 little patches, our lovely Australian sun, how it tends to give you these little skin cancery things. And yeah, they are diminishing. I've been using it for 2 weeks now, and slowly but surely they are getting smaller and going away. So that will be a great thing, because I have used black salve before, and yes, it's very effective, but by God, it can be painful if it's in the wrong spot.
Black salve is very effective. I'd have to speak to you about that some other time, but apparently it's very effective. I've got a friend in South Australia who swears by it, and he's eliminated a lot of skin cancers with it. But if we can do it with GANs, that's so much better.
Well, yes, I have used the black salve and it does work, but yes, I did it under my nose. I have never felt such pain. If you've ever had a pimple under your nose and tried to squeeze it, just take that and multiply it by about 20. Then you'll know what it feels like. So I don't ever want to do that again.
I understand. There's no pain, no gain as far as that.
It still is a bit of a slash and burn, whereas hopefully with the GANs we can just change the condition and it will change. So that's what I'm hoping.
Gentle persuasion. All right. What we've asked, you'll see, we've put together a just a temporary email. We have asked KF Kesh guys if we can have an email specific for the gardeners, because what we'd like to do is encourage a lot of people to send in questions like what we've discussed tonight. And then what we're going to be doing over the next couple of workshops is the next workshop, Lisa will be discussing about the plants and the human interaction with the plants in terms of the plants' emotional levels, the soul levels, and how everything is interconnected. And then I think we've gone through a hell of a lot of information over a short period of time. And I wanted to do this to try and give a nice big broad overview of the plant world and how the plasma works in the plant world and how plants work in plasma world. And I think I'd like to spend then a couple of workshops just to go back. And so we'll just go back and refresh a lot of concepts, because there's been a lot of work that and a lot of detail that we've gone through, and it'll be good just to refresh it. And then if we can refresh that with a lot of questions from people around the world that are listening, to encourage them to send in some questions and sending photographs of their experiences. And so the next couple of workshops we can make quite interactive in that sense. So I don't know if you guys agree with that or not.
We agree.
What we found is, yes, we don't have a lot of guys participating with us like you people do, because you're very staunch and loyal and you come every time and participate with us. But we're finding we're having a lot of views. We're having a good 2,000 views per workshop on YouTube, and all of the translators in all of the different languages are all taking my PowerPoints and translating them into all the languages and discussing it with all the different language speakers around the world. So we feel that there is a lot of interest, and there are a lot of people following, but not necessarily online right now with us. So hopefully we'll get good questions and we can sit and discuss and come up with answers for them, and maybe gain a few extra people who will come on the Zoom meeting with us. Yeah, maybe it's now time to get a little bit more off the theory and onto the practical, but we had to kind of give people a crash course in the theory.
I think you've done very well. May I point out at this stage, as one of the few participants here, it's been an exceptional presentation and it's extremely informative. I was wondering whether I can use your presentations in a small group right from the beginning. Is there any disadvantage or control on that particular idea?
You can use everything freely, Ross. If you go onto our Plasma School Library Facebook page, I don't know if you're on there, all the PowerPoints, all the PowerPoints are on there. So if you or the links to the Google Drive where the PowerPoints are, because sometimes they're too big, so I can't download them directly. So you can link to the Google Drive and download them, and you can use anything you like with pleasure.
Also,
actually downloaded all of them up to date anyway. Thank you very much for your kind of.
There's also the Facebook page on the KFSSI, on the education Facebook page, and so all the PowerPoints are also uploaded there. So everybody's welcome to use them. So it's all open source. So
we're trying to encourage people to start creating stuff that is not just talking, but also summaries and pictures and actual written word, because a lot of people haven't got time to go through the videos and sort of coalesce all this information for themselves. So we're trying to encourage people to do this, and hopefully we'll set an example and more people will try it in the future.
Yes, well, I intend to give you some information, plenty of feedback as we go.
Hello?
I can hear something.
Oh, are we still there?
Hello. I was just waiting for Alex to say something, but he
may I jump in, please?
Okay, yeah, right.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I have some questions that are off the topic here, if that would be okay. It's dealing with sea salt GANs and nitrogen GANs, and I wonder if I may proceed.
Yes, ask your question. We'll try and help.
Yeah. Okay, and a couple of seminars ago, you were discussing the efficacy of various GANSs, and so you were comparing the sea salt GANs with the regular salt and with what you call the Ormus water. And
the seawater. Yeah.
Is that the seawater? Is it?
Yes.
And well, I guess first question that I'd like to know is, I have sea salt. I'm inland, okay, so I don't have seawater. So I do have sea salt from the Caribbean, and if I were to use that and to make a GANS, how do you go about making sea salt GANS?
What you can do is, with that salt, is make a sort of a 10 or 15% solution in water. And then just add, what we do is we just slowly add some, make up a liquid solution of the caustic soda. And then we just take a tablespoon at a time and we add it to that water with the salt solution. And we just add and stir in, and we bring it up to a pH of about 10.5. And no more than that. and then you should see almost, it'll be instant, you'll get white precipitation of particles coming out from that, from the water. And then we just leave that for a good 24 hours and just let it do its job, and then afterwards we'll start cleaning.
Can I make a quick adjunct to that, Jimmy?
Yes.
It shouldn't be over 10.78 because the heavy metals kick in beyond that pH.
Yes.
And I've had that experience. I warn people to actually calibrate their pH meter correctly before doing this. Make it as accurate as possible, because mine was inaccurate, and I actually made GANs over 10.78. I don't know, it must have been well over, and it turned pink. It must have been the heavy metals in it. But now pink, yeah, sort of a pinky colour here.
Was that with seawater or with your salt water?
Seawater GANs, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
yeah, it always err on the side of caution, because if you're using it for agricultural purposes, the plants only use the softer metals anyway. So there's no need to go to a high pH to try and get all the heavy metal, all the elements out of it. So anything under 10.5 is would be fine.
So you're using the ocean GANs for as a fertilizer?
Yes, we use the seawater GANs. Yeah, so we make the GANs from the seawater, and because the seawater will contain probably 96 all the minerals on the planet. So when you're making the GANs of that, it will contain, say, most of the minerals. And when you are using that, we also just use the water from that on our plants. And it also gives the plants huge amounts, because it gives them the fields of the different minerals that they need.
Okay, so you have a hydroponic system there of 21,000 liters. And
aquaponic, yes.
And you were using a CO2 GANs jar.
Yes.
Were you using one CO2 GANs jar to do the 21,000 liters?
In the beginning, we did, when we first started, we just had the one bottle. What we've done over the time is we've just added more and more bottles. So each system now has about 8 or 9 bottles. But we use the CO2. We've added sea GANs, so the GANs we made from the seawater.
In separate bottles or mixed in with the CO2?
Separate bottles. These are all separate bottles that we do. Then we've got zinc, and we've got CH3, and we also made a GANs of iron oxide, from the iron chelates that you can buy. We made a GANs of that, and we've put that in. So, and what we're finding is the more we're putting in, the better it is. It sort of will get to a sort of a threshold point, but that's just in the water for the root system. I think the real magic will happen when you start feeding the fields from the top for the plants. And we will show you the different things we have tried with hanging balls and this and that, but we didn't really see much change, and that's why we have to go to the spinning reactors. Mr. Kitch explains that the plants take virtually all their fields, that they need through their leaf structure, and very little through their roots. So that's the stage where we're going next, is trying to do that from the top.
Oh my God. I have about 3 more questions.
That's all right.
Okay, so you were talking about the chelate there. So how would you make the chelate? Do you add the caustic soda to the chelate and then add that to your CO2 GANs production?
Basically, you add the caustic to the chelate. This is how you do any organic or even any metal. So you add your caustic and then allow it to turn to nano, because that's what it'll do. at least for a few days. I prefer leaving it up to a week or so that I know most of it's nanoed. And I do a very strong caustic solution. I don't ever sort of add water first and then add more caustic. I just throw caustic crystals over the top and then add the water and then give it a good shake. Once it's not so hot it's going to like burst the glass jar or anything. And then I'll add it to salt water. The reason you put it into your CO2 box, if you're creating food or a herb or something like this, you want the CO2 fields in there as well because it's giving extra health, but it's not actually necessary. So you can, if you don't have a CO2 box, or what, I don't actually put it in my CO2 box because then it's going to muck up my CO2 box. So what I try and do is I'll keep the first rinse of my CO2 box salt water in a bucket, and then I use that to do the final gansing of anything that I try and create. Or if you don't have that, you can just add salt water to it, or add it to the salt water, and it will gans. It just won't have the CO2 fields in there.
Are you using electrodes?
No, nothing. Because it's the salt. It's the salt in the caustic that turns it to nano, and it's the salt in your CO2 box that turns it to GANs.
And how long would that take?
If you've nanoed it well, and as I say, leave it a week or so, then when you put it in the salt water, literally, if you have a look, it's almost instantaneous. It'll popcorn out. It'll create much more than what you had in the first place. And you'll see you'll create a much bigger poofy effect, like a popcorn. And I'll leave it about 24 hours or so, let it settle out, and then start cleaning.
Does it percolate its way to the bottom like the other ganses then?
Yes, it does. What you will find, if you do it from an iron chelate, what you will find though is there will be a small amount of CH3. And what mine did was the iron chelate dropped down and the CH3 kind of hung above, so it created like a layer effect. And then eventually the CH3 dropped down as well. But it was only a very small amount of CH3. It was mainly just the iron.
Okay. The next question is, when you have all these GANS bottles in your waterways there for the hydroponics, and the water itself becomes plasmatic?
Yes.
So that actually creates a field above the water, does it not, or does it stay? How would you describe the field? Would you describe the field up to the surface of the water, or does it go beyond the surface of the water up into the atmosphere around the plant?
I reckon it goes beyond the water. We did a little test with a pendulum about a week ago, and we tested it was just a little shot glass of CO2 water. And with this, we measured the field, and it gave us a radius of 3 meters just from that little shot glass. So when we're looking at our volume of water, 24,000 liters of water, I reckon it's giving a very big, huge environment. And that's what I'd mentioned earlier. I'd noticed all our grass and everywhere around it is growing very well. But it's not enough to provide that extra feeding from the top. So it's providing a great environment for the plants. They're happy, the root structures are happy, but it's not that next stage. It's just not enough to give them that extra food from the top.
This radius that you're talking about, is that parallel to the ground, or does that also?
It's a ball shape. It's a sphere.
It is a ball-shaped sphere.
Yeah.
So what I'm finding is that the plasma water is definitely way more stronger than the GANS, and actually if we could utilize, and then of course you get into the field plasma, and then that's probably what you're talking about. Then is somehow to get the field plasma up into the upper upper layer of the greenhouse, if you will.
Yes, to feed the, then you're sort of designing an exact field for the plants that can feed them what they need directly. And then that's where we will, Kesh has often said you can grow tomatoes in 2 or 3 days, you can grow lettuce in a few days, because if you're able to feed them the right fields, then they'll just take it and grow. So that will definitely be the next stage.
A previous question I had was there was some discussion on making a nitrogen GANS. Am I correct in that?
Yes, we're still on that mission.
What you can do, though, is you can create a CO2 that has fields of nitrogen in it. We have done this already by, instead of using salt in your CO2 box, you can use it's potassium nitrate fertilizer. So if you get a little bit of potassium nitrate fertilizer.
We also did that as a 10% solution in normal water. So we created that potassium nitrate 10% solution. And then we just did the same setup as the CO2 box, your zinc plate, nano copper plate, exactly the same way. And it started producing, to us it looks exactly like the CO2.
A little bit darker.
A little bit different color, but it started producing huge amounts very quickly. It was very effective. And a friend of ours he's very sensitive with energies, when he felt this, he said, no, it's very different to the CO2. So I'm not quite sure what we've created, but we do think it's sort of CO2 with the fields of nitrogen and possibly fields of potassium in there. And
I have tested it on our microgreens, and it is making our microgreens really healthy and strong. So it has a different extra element to it.
So in the actually, so the nitrogen is assisting in the production of the carbon, oxygen, hydrogen, the amino acid then.
Yes, what we're finding, because we're growing in the water and there's no other help from the ground, we're finding we've got to get it really correct. And the nitrogen is the one thing that we're lacking, because we've got the C's and we've got the H's and we've got the O's, we just don't have the N. So if we can give everything in combination, that's our next step.
But on the other hand, the more I'm looking at this, even though we are on a bit of a quest to try and get the nitrogen, I do think that we will probably not need it, because the environment is 78% nitrogen. So it's just a case of understanding what environment we need to create for these plants so that they can grow very fast. So,
and then maybe they'll take up the nitrogen themselves.
Yes. So there's two ways to look at it,
Well, I kind of agree with you. What is your opinion then on the phosphates aspects of it? Have you made a phosphate GANS yet?
No.
No.
What we did find with the nitrate is the potassium nitrate, we could make a GANS. The calcium nitrate,
no, magnesium.
Magnesium nitrate didn't. And that's because when you look at the magnesium versus potassium, potassium is a more unstable element. And this is apparently what the salt does as well, is it's unstable. So it's allowing an interaction to occur. I'm not quite sure exactly what it is, but with your magnesium, it's stable, so nothing happens. So your potassium allows the fields to transfer.
Are you still using the fish in your system?
No. Our fish all died. That was in December.
That's a common story. Can I ask what you think what caused the problem?
I think the fish had enough.
But actually we had catastrophic power failure.
there was a power failure, and
so they suffocated.
Yeah, we only have so many hours. If they don't get oxygen, then they will die. So somehow we had a power failure somewhere in our system, and so it switched off. And when I got there the following morning, the fish had all died. But I'd like to think that the fish decided that they're not needed anymore, and so I think en masse they decided they're out of here, and they've done their job, and it's time for them to move on. So I think they conspired to leave.
I'm sorry for your loss. So that is so common.
It is.
What I was really wanting to find out, I wasn't expecting that answer. What I was wanting to find out is how the fish were reacting to the plasma water.
Very good. I think there is huge scope for the plasma for aquaculture, the fish farming, because what we had seen, particularly during the winter months, the fish tend to pick up diseases then, because the water's cold, they're very slow, their immune system is slow, so they then pick up diseases. And generally every winter we'd have sort of quite a few fish deaths. But since we started using the plasma in the water, this previous winter time, I think we had one fish death, and that was all. And I think you don't know what it was. I think it was a bit of old age because they were old fish, but otherwise they were all very happy. We found that even during winter time, they were feeding very well. So I think it has huge benefits for the fishing industry, particularly fish farming industry, because they have to farm, because it's in such a small scale, they have to farm with antibiotics and all sorts of stuff. And using the CO2 alone, I think they'll be able to get away with not having any antibiotics in their fishing.
Oh, so definitely. Yeah. What species of fish were you using?
Silver perch.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, in Australia, we are not allowed to sort of import anything that's not native. So there are only very specific Australian wild fish that we're allowed to use.
Oh, yeah, that's right. They banned koi a long time ago, didn't they?
Yes, and we're not allowed to get, because tilapia is quite a common fish that is used throughout the world for aquaponics, and so we weren't allowed to use it, even though it is in the waterways already.
No, not tilapia.
Tilapia?
No.
I don't think so.
No, that was something else. That was the mosquito fish we weren't allowed to use.
Okay.
Did I hear correctly that you'd also have like if you have a saltwater gans, that you can make a freshwater gans, or am I wrong?
We haven't, so I don't know.
I'm sure you can make a gans out of anything. Some guys have even made ganses out of crystals. They've crushed crystals and made ganses, and you can literally make a gans out of just about anything. I think it would depend on your water. If you're looking at bore water or maybe snow melt that comes from places where there's a lot of minerals in the water, I would suggest you probably can, but it would have to be something that has got something in it.
Oh yes, and one more question. The gentleman mentioned that his gans got pink on the ocean water there. Is it possible that was Himalayan salt that he was using, or was he using sea salt?
Sea salt. I'm using sea water.
You're using sea water, okay. So, has anyone seen a difference between using, say, a Himalayan salt or a Mediterranean sea salt versus say a Caribbean sea salt?
I think you would probably get quite each one would be different. It would contain different minerals from different parts of the world. Even your ocean, even from the seawater, even just different parts of the ocean that you're getting your seawater would be slightly different.
So in your case, you're actually harvesting it directly from your from the sea.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, our water's still clean. We don't have any radiation or
Relatively.
relatively, yeah, but we don't have any pollution in terms of runoff where we are because we're quite rural. So, you know, we're pretty safe in what we use. But yeah, you know, it's been suggested that many places in the northern hemisphere you shouldn't really be using the seawater.
Right. Yeah. Thank you for answering all of my questions. I didn't. I guess I'm taking advantage of the fact that there's not many attendees today, but I just want to add that I can't thank you enough for the work that you're doing.
It's a pleasure. You know, we gain so much more from it. You don't really understand. You know, a lot of people might think it's work for us, but it's not really work because we are learning so much by trying to delve through all of this and create these workshops. We learn more from it, you know. So we're just happy.
I think people are underestimating how important these workshops are, and I just I hope you continue going. I like the new plans that you're having, and these are all very, very relevant things. But I am from the school that believes that we can feed everybody on this planet. So and I've been doing this for a long time. It's your setup there has been one of my dreams, and somehow that dream is constantly getting scuppered. But we're going to try again this year, and right now it's below freezing here, but very shortly we're going to start growing, and we're preparing the mini ganses and the plasmas to do that, and it'll be mainly in a hydroponic system.
Okay.
And so we'll definitely have things to report down the road.
Yeah. Thanks for your kind words. Thank you.
Also, Alex, if you looking for a really good place to look at a slight bit of aquaponics there, the open source guys from Friendly Aquaponics in Hawaii are really, really good. We got all our basic plans from them, and we've never been steered wrong. They're called Friendly Aquaponics, and they're in Hawaii, and they've got a whole lot of open source stuff as well.
Friendly Aquaponics. Thank you very much. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Alex. Trish or Neil, you think you had a question there?
No, I was just going to support what you were saying about the next couple of workshops, and that as as Trish said, we'll be away for the next couple of months, and we're not sure whether we can join live or not. But we'll I'll definitely download the off the Australian Plasma Library, because I mean, and I think that's a good idea to keep looking at those ones, because I do the same with Keisha's teachings. You know, they go too late at night for me, so I download them the next morning and listen to them at their leisure. And I'd also like to add to what Alex was saying, and that about these are very good formats. It's very informative, and I really like the way that you both are presenting stuff. It's good to understand, and I find them very well worthwhile.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
We just hope that learning about the plants actually teaches us about the whole universe, because if we just understand the interaction with the plants, we can understand it for everything, really. So we're sneaking in the back door. We're teaching the totality with our roses.
I think it's brilliant. I mean, I've enjoyed a lot of tramping over the life, and I've always felt really good where the water is and the bushes and you know, out in the outdoors. And when you're talking about the plasma fields and that, it gives a deeper understanding of what's happening, and it's really, I find it really fascinating and really good.
Yes, you know that there's a connection there, and you can feel that connection and understand it all. And
yeah, that's what I'm going to do next workshop, and I hope you actually have a listen, because yeah, I'm going to explain the soul of the plants and why we connect with them.
Okay, well, we'll look forward to joining one way or the other.
well, thanks for your participation. It's been great, and enjoy your trip.
Yes, have a lovely time.
Thank you.
Okay, so
Anybody else? We're going to close off.
shall we close? Everybody, any other questions?
Nope.
All right.
Thanks very much, gang.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you
And
both. Thank you both.
thank you, Ross. And thanks for participating. And we'll bring this one to a close, and we'll see you in 2 weeks' time. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.